Artist Relations, Marketing, and Special Projects at Capital Music Group. And ooh, can you see me? Hold on one second.
I can't see you. There we go.
As I have you here, you are the Vice President of Artist Relations, Marketing. Recipient of Bill 2040 under 40 and on the Hot Power Program. So we're very lucky to be joined by one of the music industry's fastest rising stars today. Thank you so much for joining us. So Brittany, in January with Capital Music Group, which was around the same time that Lil Baby joined the label via Motown's partnership with Quality Control back at the end of 2017. So tell me about this relationship that you and Baby have had since day one and how it's evolved to where it is now.
Yeah, so Baby got signed
in this.
Yeah, can you hear me? Your connection's a little bit, but can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So Lil Baby got signed to the label in December, and I started in January. So literally, like the first project he's released on the major label, I've been there by his side from the beginning. And with that, it's been a lot of education, a lot of artist development, and wanting to make sure that we grow his audience and footprint in an organic and intentional manner. And it's been great to see kind of our journeys at the company kind of go in parallel. And, you know, with this latest release, My Turn, the world got to see, you know, what I've been seeing in him from the beginning.
Absolutely. And tell us about when we think of artists as a brand, what are Baby's brand pillars, right? Like what does he stand for as an artist, as a person, and how do you bring that to life as a marketer?
Yeah, there's a few pillars that we make sure that we highlight in every meeting, every conversation, and it's authenticity, it is being intentional, and the fact that he's a storyteller that speaks for the people and speak for people like him and communities that, for people that look like him, and also communities where people may not have had opportunities, and he wants to make sure that he's constantly the person that shows that there is hope and opportunity out there. So those are things that we want to weave in every kind of campaign that we do across the board, especially when it comes to, you know, album rollouts.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of album rollouts, so you mentioned My Turn is the record holder for the year's most streamed, most consumed album of 2020. So congrats on that achievement. Walk us through that rollout, because that album has the distinction of being one of the last big releases to hit literally right before COVID. So the fact that you had in-person access to him, I believe helped. So kind of walk us through that and what that launch looked like.
It seems like a lifetime ago. And we literally, the week when Andrew's saying like it was literally the week that we got shut down is when we finished our promotional run with him. And for My Turn, you know, Baby released 3 music projects in 2018, and then he didn't release any of his own projects in 2019, so that we knew when it was time for the album, we had to make a statement. It was something that he worked on for a long time. He had songs, so people felt him in the marketplace, but he hadn't had a body of work. And what we knew going into the album was that people knew the songs, but they didn't know him. They couldn't put a face to the name. They didn't really know exactly what he stood for, but they know that he had like these big records. So going into it, we wanted to make sure that we showcase different sides of his personality, showcase the fact that he is a lover of music, the fact that he's a family man, the fact that he's committed to his community, and as well as telling those stories on the different platforms and identifying which ones where we knew we wanted to increase the audience, identifying ones where we knew that he naturally gravitated towards, so how we could double down on that, and then having him be open-minded and exploring some platforms for the first time. And every person that we aligned with that wanted to help us with the rollout and the marketing, from brands on, we made sure that those pillars were identified early, and all activations, all experiential, tie back into what we knew we wanted to do was increase his overall profile.
Yeah. And I also understand he was even able to do in-person signings at malls, right?
Yeah, so that was, selling physical CDs. I feel like it's one of those things that really don't do them anymore, but people, there's still an audience for them. And we wanted to, like I said, he's like, I'm for the people. I do this for my fans.
Mhm.
And he wanted to make sure that he was able to touch them. So we did in-store meet and greets where people actually bought physical CDs. He signed them, took pictures. It was one of those moments where it was like the line's supposed to cut off at 100 people and he ends up signing 500 people, and that's just a testament. Everyone's like, rushing, like, we have to go. He's like, I'm not leaving until everyone who waited in line, who bought a CD, is able to get. And I'm like, you have to respect and love when you have an artist that's willing to super serve their fans in that way. But we did that in different cities. He did pop-ups in Atlanta where he also went and gave back CDs to different people in the communities. And for those who we couldn't touch physically, we did a lot of things virtual. Even before, obviously we had to switch everything to virtual.
Right.
We were intentional in the fact that increasing like his global audience, we were able to do things, even factoring in the time when people would be up. But he wanted to make sure that like everyone who couldn't be with him, whether it's at a show or whatever, still felt the fact that he wanted them to feel seen and appreciated.
Now, and when you have someone who is very for the fans, what does that mean for TV performances, etc.? I would imagine, and he's willing to do for his fans. So how have you made those media moments count, whether it's late night performances, award show looks, that kind of stuff?
We have the fans there. Well, before we were like, the fans were the golden ticket. We're like, can we have his can we have his fans in the audience? When we did like MTV TRL, we did a special contest to make sure that his fans were there, and it's not just about sourcing different audience members. But again, it goes just back to content, and he does not do a lot of interviews. And we're really intentional about the performances that he does. But we double down on content, whether it's on his YouTube, whether it's on his socials. We do different type of content for the different platforms. And we knew that was going to be the way that if they couldn't read about him, they were going to be able to see him, and they were going to be able to see him in different elements. For official videos, we had where he answered some questions for his fans. We did Instagram Live so that even if you weren't reading him, but we partnered that with like the New York Times. He did that one big interview, and then we also did different podcasts. So we wanted to make sure we touched on everything, but at the same time that it was authentic to who he was, so it wasn't forced or felt like we were trying to just jam this because it's album rollout time into your face.
That's right. Now, that certainly dovetails with the importance of, as you say, authenticity when we're talking about Gen Z, which is the topic of today. So, first of all, I'm hoping you can quell a common myth about Gen Z, which is that they're not brand loyal, including when it comes to music. I mean, you've worked with them through several album cycles now, so clearly you've seen that loyalty only increase. Do you think that's true across the board, or what's the trick to earning that trust with Gen Z when it comes to loyalty?
For babies specifically, they have been incredibly loyal. And again, I think that goes back to our strategies of doing different things to touch them in different areas. There's not one entry point. And I think our strategy of content really super serves what they want. And then also the experiential, where they just want to feel connected and seen to the project. They don't want to be, promoted to or marketed to. They want to feel like they're included in the process. And we wanted to make sure that they felt it, whether he would put up a poll on Instagram, like, which cover do you like? Or like Twitter polls, just so they felt like this is our project. And I think including them in that way has allowed them to be loyal because they feel like they're on the journey as long as I've been with him. So they feel like his win is their win. And it's like, I don't know if we're in the days where people still have like armies, but he doesn't have, like, his fans don't have a name, but they definitely make their presence known and felt for sure.
Now, there are some artists who they give the key to their partners to help manage different social accounts, and there's some who like to control the voice more. Where does Baby fall in that ratio?
I would say it's collaborative, but he definitely handles his socials. We talk to him about like what things we want to do and explore, but it's not like, there's 5 people on the team that have access to all his platforms and can post it at any time. If it's something that's on his feed or on his account, he absolutely is a part of that and posted in caption, and I'm usually the one texting him like, can you revise that caption, or can you add the swipe up link, or I'm the one that's following behind him, or like, wait, I need you to post this. And sometimes he'll post up a little too quickly, and it's like, okay, let it go. But I think retaining that ownership where it doesn't feel like this is a label promo page is super important, because the fans see right through it when it becomes the label posting a flyer every other day.
Yeah. And well, in case in point, I believe even when it comes to TikTok, which is one of the go-tos to get a song heard, it sounded like the fans kind of took the reins of marketing versus Baby starting a viral challenge for a song like Whoa or something like that. Tell me about who led that charge when it comes to helping one of his songs go viral.
Yeah, so Whoa we released in October of last year, and Baby was not active on TikTok at the time, and it was almost one of those things where his fans were calling him out, like, you need to participate. We're doing these challenges where everything is taking off, and I remember him calling me like, Brittany, I gotta learn how to do this dance. I gotta really I really gotta get it. I can't, they're doing it better than me. And I was like, yeah, you need to practice. Also, your sons are doing it too. And so I think once the fans rallied behind it, he jumped on it, and he did a couple of different things. But I think was again goes back to authenticity. He's not gonna be one of those people that are on TikTok for every song. We're not coming up with a challenge that we want to seed out and then have people like do it and blow it up. But it's something naturally happens. We will often, double down on that. And what we saw was there were certain influencers on TikTok that were doing the song and we saw certain artists doing it. And when it came time to do the official video, we said, why not have those people in the official video and bring them in? And so we kind of had their audience just come into his world in a more organic way than him posting 20 TikTok videos, because that's just not who he is. But it was important to recognize that platform was really helping the song, and the fans were naturally doing the UGC. So we put some of the influencers in there, and then when the video came out, obviously they were sharing it and reposting it, and again being a part of the process where they helped us obviously promote the song. And now, something platinum later, we're here.
That's right. You do, of course, work with many artists beyond Lil Baby. I want to get to those in just a second. But real quick, so let's talk about brand partners for Lil Baby for a sec, because for one thing, I believe last year, maybe even 2 years ago now, Doritos helped play a big role in certainly increasing just his overall cultural profile as an artist, and even playing a lead role in a brand new song that he created with the brand. Tell me about that and how a partnership like that helped you as a marketer from kind of the cosign that a Doritos and a PepsiCo can bring to the table.
Yeah, as artists grow, I think one of the biggest things as a label that we try to do is find brand partners that align with who they are. Obviously understanding like brands are household names, and if we can work together to amplify both of our goals, it only makes sense. So as he started to get bigger and bigger as an artist, there were several brands who wanted to be, in business and with him. And a lot of our artists actually, and even more as of late, they want to make sure that they're just not like snapping their name on something, or that it's just not a brand placement in a video. It's like, how can we make this truly collaborative? So where my fans don't think it's forced, and and then the people who are already committed to your brand can learn about me in an organic fashion. So with Doritos, like I said, Baby's been a lover of music, and so we had the Spark the Beat contest where there were submissions and fans could submit to be on a song with Baby. Mm-hmm. And it was an open verse, so he recorded his, and even in the song, he naturally called out the brand, and they had like over 31 million impressions, and it was like the first day it broke the previous record of submissions of the brand. And We went through the process. Content. We showed them in the studio working on the song together. The fan that was selected, he got to be there and really create. And when it was released on platforms so fans could go and listen to it. And Baby was super happy because it was in his element of creating music, and he'll tell you he's like an A&R. He's like, I used to go and like look music up and find people early on. So this was like, okay, well, if you naturally do that, let's do that with your fans, and you tap into some new talent and give them that platform. And it was one of those partnerships where he was super involved, super interested, because we made sure that it aligned with who he was and what he wanted, as well as what the brand needed out of the relationship as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just the level of engagement alone, I'm sure, is leaps and bounds over what typically gets. And then, of course, literally in the last couple of days, Lil Baby is one of several artists that are featured in a brand new spot from Beats. Tell me about how that came about and why Baby, that certainly fits with the overall context of what Baby's been trying to say this year.
Again, Beats, we work with Beats a lot in the music space, and he released A Bigger Picture in June, which was an incredibly important song for what was going on and what continues to go on. And when Beats approached us through an agency about thinking about wanting to just use the song at first in the spot, it turned into like, well, how can we make this bigger, and how can we make this more inclusive of a partnership? And it kind of started turning because of, again, it goes back to relationships too, because Melina Masukas, who directed the Beats commercial that will be on TV, it just aired digitally last week. She was the director of Queen and Slim, which came out last year, and Baby appeared on the soundtrack for Queen and Slim. And so there was naturally like already the awareness of each other. And when they wanted to do this campaign, which was called You Love Me, and basically just speaks to the fact that, you love Black culture, but do you love me? And Baby was like, I want to be involved. And it was one of those no-brainers. Like, how can I be involved in this? And ended up doing this commercial where with Naomi Osaka and Bubba Wallace. And it just speaks to, it's a beautiful piece. Like, I see it every time I get chills. But again, it goes to, now more than ever, our artists are honestly demanding that brands take a stance in terms of social responsibility for their participation. And, Beats definitely, made a stand, and it was in the most beautiful way. So that came together. That one was actually pretty easy because the moment was bigger than everyone involved. And I think, Baby knew that, and the brand was obviously already aware. So when those kind of things happen, it's those are the moments I'm like, wow. And to see that kind of campaign come alive, you just know that the impact that it's going to have. And it's one of those moments where you're proud to have that relationship with the brand and the artist.
I'm glad you said that, because two-way accountability will certainly define the months and years ahead, right? Because historically it's been the brand comes to you with the check and the checklist of post this by X date, and by the way, show up to these 3 events. But cool, that's all great. But what do you do to ensure that you're hiring people who look like me, that, the people the camera on this very spot, like the Molinas of the world, represent the culture community. I think that's the big takeaway of this year in particular. And that goes, by the way, for all cultures. I do work in the LGBT space that still needs to catch up to those same things, so.
Yeah, and not just what you are doing now, but what have you been doing? And is this a real long-term commitment? And is it not just, a phase or something right now that everyone wants to jump to, but how are you really dedicated to this? And to Baby's credit, and like I said, the other artists that I work with, they've had that kind of stance even prior to this year alone, and they've been willing to say no to checks if it didn't align, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, culture vultures.
Artists that I work with do not, even if it's something as simple as a product integration, it's like, how does it make sense?
Exactly. Yeah, because again, Gen Z in particular will call that out
And they
immediately.
do. And they do on Twitter, and they'll be like, well, you don't even use that product. You were just online using this. And then it becomes, yeah, no. It turns into crisis management and like strategic marketing in a whole different way.
That's right. Quick friendly reminder for those of you tuned in, we do have about 10 minutes left. So if you do have any questions for Brittany, please drop them in the Q&A and I'll ask them toward the end. In the meantime, Brittany, let's talk about some of the other artists that you. So also in the QC fam, you have City Girls, and this was a big year for them. JT was back, lots of new music. Tell me about some approaches or launch strategies that you got off the ground with the City Girls this year.
So with City Girls, their album actually leaked. So
Right.
it leaked before we had, you have these great plans, like JT's home, you have they're back together, you have all of these ideas, and then it's like, it's one of those moments which again, like 2020 tells you, you have to be able to pivot and you have to be able to adjust, right? So when the album leaked, we were like, I use other words than that, but but we already knew again with them because we've done a documentary with them in the past that their fans want to see them in their authentic self. So we had content and we had been documenting the recording process. And so if anything with that, it was just expediting our plans and making sure that we put out as much documentary type footage. We did a YouTube series where we did a 5-part and fans loved it. Their biggest thing is, why isn't this longer? And we're like, guys, we have to keep you coming back for more. And then with them, because they are new, it was about introducing them to different brands and trying to find out things that they actually liked. And some of the offers that came in, it was like, okay, how can we make this make sense? Like you said, there was people who wanted to do a checklist, but we're like, okay, how does this work with the girls? We know that we need to do content. For one of their videos, Jobs, it was right when, OnlyFans was kicking off, and we were like, okay, and we got approached by them. We're like, well, how can we make it make sense? So we weave that into the storyline for one of their music videos. There are certain beauty people that want to work with them, and again, our biggest question is, how can we make it make sense? And we know the girls love beauty. We know they are off the cuff. They are provocative. And again, that also is like one of those things you have to be real about when you're talking to different people. Like, these are our girls. You got to love them and take them as they are, because they're going to go viral for something at some point. And I look at my phone and I'm like, what did JT say now? But with that, it's about not trying to change them, but seeing how you can make it make sense for what you need to do. So it's like, JT, if we know every time you speak, you go viral, let's connect that and you do a Twitter Q&A with your fans. Or, you're going to do a TikTok because you're dancing all the time. Let's do you and your friends where you guys do a challenge. And we ended up doing a challenge to one of their songs that took place on TikTok. And from there, we were able to grow their email listing. We were able to grow all of their social accounts. We were able to do different fan engagements virtually that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So I feel like the perfect group to be able to touch Gen Z and the different platforms, because they're willing to do it all and not be so careful, I'll say. And so they are the ones that, are fun to have on all of them.
I can only imagine. Yeah, and again, it's like what a City Girl will and won't do is different from a Baby, different from a Tiana Major 9, who represents the emerging side of what you do. So I want to talk about Tiana specifically in a sec, but let's talk about emerging artists in the context of this moment we're in now, right? Because emerging artists are and will continue to be, sadly, the hardest hit by the pandemic in a lot of ways, because all the ways that they got discovered by touring, being an opening act, playing the daytime slot at Coachella, whatever it is, like those things don't exist. So for the smaller acts, smaller now anyway, acts that you represent, what are some ways that you're making sure that they can cut through the noise right now, given that it is even more challenging to break an act right now?
It's incredibly, it is a challenge. And, Tiana specifically, she lives in London, so she's not here. And because for some places, we've been able to, with strict COVID guidelines, to be able to shoot different content or do live performances. But that's compounded when the artist doesn't live here and you're trying to do it remotely times two, I'll say. But with that, it goes back to what we've tried to do is pairing our emerging artists under the house of like Motown, right? Because right now Motown's name and brand visibility is bigger than some of our emerging artists. So we've done a lot of things under the brand name where we did different Q&As. We've done R&B nights that Motown has put on. We've for brand alignment, we've done like different Motown emerging artist showcases because it's busy out, and with artists home, they just want to create music and put music out. But it's like, okay, how can we still get our Tiana to resonate? And recently, she did a partnership with Elf Cosmetics, and that came from, combining under the Motown name. And even with her though, we've still been doing a lot of content, a lot of at-home performances. We've done some TV things. She performed like on Kelly Clarkson. So still making sure that content, no matter the level of artist, we're still doing it. It's just we have to find ways to have it cut through the city girls and little babies whose fans are at a different space. But nonetheless, Tiana speaks to a whole different side of an audience. And even with her fan base right now in terms of on her socials may not be as large, but like you have to just keep building. You have to earn fan by fan at this point. And if you're going on live and next week we see 10 more people, great. Just keep building and building and building. And we've been trying to do that with a lot of our artists because it can get a little discouraging because, a lot of these artists do want to be on the road. They do want certain opportunities that weren't afforded to them this year. But, like all of us, we're just doing the best that we can.
Yeah. And with Tiana specifically, she also got a giant cosign that I would imagine helped expand her audience, which was Adele Instagramming her song Same Space, right? Tell me about, I would imagine that's not pitchable. That's probably just an earned moment that happened, right?
It was one of those moments you're like, you used to see your phone start lighting up and you're like, what is happening? And then you see like the Adele and you're like, what? And she obviously, from being from London, it was super emotional. I remember FaceTiming with her and she didn't know because she was actually traveling. So we all called her excited. Wow. So we called her excited and was like, oh my God. And she's like, what? And I'm like, and then when she saw, she just like obviously got emotional. But that was not planned. And that was not something that obviously any of us could have foreseen. But when obviously that cosign has helped tremendously, but it speaks to just, you have to just keep running your race and just keep putting content out and day by day. And I think that was one of the moments where she was like, okay, like it is getting out there and we are still finding ways to cut through. But honestly, it goes back to just, she's an incredible artist at the end of the day. That's
right. Well, again, for all of you tuning in, Tiana Major 9, all one word. When it is safe to tour again, please do yourself a favor and check her out. I was very fortunate to catch her Grammy showcase right before lockdown earlier this year and blew me away.
Tiana is special. She is a once in a lifetime type of artist for sure.
1,000%. Brittany, before we go, I want to learn a little bit more about you and you as a marketer. So before you joined Capital, like we said at the beginning of 2018, you spent some time on the agency as well as management side. So what did your experience teach you as a marketer? Like what's like a through line or two that you've carried through, whether it was your work on the management side or as an agent before joining the label?
I think one of my, I'll say like superpowers or things that's made me be able to do what I do is being able to gain the trust of the artist. And I've been on the management side, so I know I can foresee certain conversations, and I can help be the bridge and the connector to make sure that both parties involved, whether it's the label and the artist, whether it's the brand and the artist, really come into a common place. And that I'll say I'm definitely an artist advocate, and I want to make sure that their vision is represented in whatever they do. And so when I was managing an artist, obviously I was doing that because they were my artists that I was managing. When I was on the agency side and doing touring, I wanted to make sure that they were packaged in the right touring space, and that that their storytelling was done in that arena. And so now coming into the label, I feel like it's the same thing, just from a different angle, but being able to establish trust in an artist and understanding that you're not going to change them, but you're going to help amplify and develop who they want to be is paramount.
That's right. Two quick questions for you before I hand the reins back to David to wrap up for the day. So, in addition to your day-to-day at Capitol, Brittany, you've played a key role in the advancement of racial justice within the music industry. You were part of The Show Must Be Paused back in June, and you're a founding member of UMG's Task Force for Meaningful Change, as well as CMG's Task Force for Diversity and Inclusion. So now that we're nearly 6 months into this new phase of, I guess, the Black Lives Matter post Breonna Taylor, what measurable change would you say you've seen so far, and more importantly, what would you like to see heading into 2021?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think that the music industry right now is in a place of change, and I am super optimistic of what's to come. And that came from a lot of really hard conversations with some people that you do work with on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And it's uncomfortable, but I think if everyone is coming from the intention of wanting for change in a positive direction, those conversations have been able to create change. So the Task Force for Meaningful Change, we were super involved in terms of making sure people were for voting, especially within the Black and Latino communities. We just recently launched last week a internship for HBCU students who will be able to have a paid internship through UMG, and that is across all of our business units. We're starting a mentorship program and having a really dedicated focus to hiring more people of color, and it's especially, Black executives in higher positions that represent the music that, is most profitable, especially right now.
That's right. That is a even longer, in-depth conversation for another summit. We welcome the opportunity to have you back at one of our future summits around multicultural marketing and especially D&I. All right, before I let you go, speaking of 2021, what's one quick prediction for music marketing in the year ahead? Where's it all going, especially as lockdown looks indefinite for a minute?
I think we will have to figure out the live touring space. I don't think the artist or the business is going to have another year of no shows like it was, and so I think that's everyone's main focus is with this music, how we can have that connect in the live space. And I know there's virtual and different components like that, but I think there's going to be a real focus on figuring out how we can have it resemble something more of like touring in the more traditional sense.
1,000%. Awesome. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for sharing your insights and strategies with us today. Can't thank you enough for closing out a fantastic day of programming.
Thank you.
Back to you, David.
Well, thank you both, Brittany and Andrew, for just a good, energetic. Brittany, I really like that thought on. You put it so concisely when you were talking about content breaking through, like breaking through the different audiences at different times, and different communities. And it is the one thing that marketers really need to do, whether that is a story or it is content that causes you to take action or content that the community shares.
And it's not one size fits all on the platform. I think that's one of the biggest things too.
Absolutely. That came up on the previous panel as well. So that was a good way to end it. So with that, I just want to